Hello, and welcome to U University. I'm Dr. Kelly. Well, I'm recording this episode late because I've been sick for the past week and a half. It's just a cold, but I didn't have much of a voice over the weekend when I usually record. So I waited a couple extra days, and hopefully I'll be able to get through today. It's to the point where I've just been coughing a lot and my voice has been pretty scratchy. Yesterday, I had a little coughing fit in one of my classes and my voice got awfully croaky, but it was close to the end of class anyway, so I made it through barely. In addition to being sick, last week my schedule was crammed with several extra long meetings, so I didn't have my usual catch-up time. But luckily it worked out where I had some time this weekend to finish some paperwork that needed to be submitted. So I'm getting caught up all around. Look at my flowers today. They're mostly lilies, and I'm sure they smell really good, but I don't have much of a sense of smell right now. I also have some dahlias on the other side. And a lot of these lilies haven't even bloomed yet, so there's a lot that are going to be opening up in the days to come. I'm continuing to participate in the Month of Letters Challenge, where you send out a card or letter every day during the month of February, except for Sundays and holidays. And for this month, that is 24 days and 24 cards. Which I said last time I've already exceeded that, but I'm still sending out some each week. I didn't get any cards made this past week, so I don't have a handmade card to show you, but I did send out some cards that I bought at the store. This is one of those hologram pictures where you can see the flower in the background, and if you change the angle, you can see the butterfly. It just reminded me of spring. And I've received a number of cards in the mail from you guys, so thank you so much. Speaking of spring, it seems like everyone here in the U.S. has been talking about the unseasonably warm weather we've been having. Yeah, it's been so beautiful here for the past week, like in the 60s and 70s, which is, I guess, would be around 15 to 25 degrees Celsius. We've got daffodils and crocuses that have just shot up, and the grass is getting a little bit green. I even had a mosquito on me yesterday, so nature seems to think that spring might be here. But after our record high today, it's going back to more seasonable temperatures like in the 30s, which around 0 Celsius for the near future. So, oh well, it was nice to have a little break from the winter chill. I wanted to show you some yarn that I got last week. My friend Kathy, hi Kathy, turned me on to Huckleberry Knits, which is a yarn company out of Bellingham, Washington. The dyer's name is Scarlett, and she's been hand dyeing now for about 10 years, but I've never had any of her yarn. After Kathy told me about it, I went on their website and was just smitten by the gorgeous colorways. The base that I was originally looking for was a fingering weight merino nylon blend, but that was completely sold out. So then I was looking at the BFL or Blueface Leicester and nylon blend, which I love for socks, and I ended up getting 2 of those. The BFL nylon base is called Willow, and I purchased the colorway Wine Sap, which is greens and browns, burgundy into pink, so it's just gorgeous. And the other is called Mercado, which is purple and green and berry and yellow. So you can see that the Wine Sap colorway has not been reskein, so you can, so the blocks of dyed color are really clear. And the Mercado has been reskeined, so you can see all the colors together, more similar to what it might look knit up. Now, the funny thing was that the day before I received those in the mail, I got a very sweet package in the mail from Kathy, which contained a skein of the merino nylon blend that I had originally been looking for. Thank you, Kathy. That was so nice, especially since I had just started getting sick and felt really crummy that day. So I got this surprise package and opened it up, and here was this beautiful yarn. And this base is called American Dream Sock. This is the Grand Canyon colorway, and the colors in this are so amazing. There's green, orange, teal, gold, lavender, burgundy, berry, and then into purple. So I've got this fabulous collection of yarn from Huckleberry Knits now, and I'm sure I'll be making socks out of all of these. I love that I got turned on to a dyer that is new to me, and I will put a link to her shop's website in the description box below so you can see all the beautiful yarn and fiber for yourself. Last week, another one of my whips graduated off the needles. I can hardly believe that this is done because I've been working on it for about a year now. This is the Windy Sky Shawl by my fabulous friend, Debbie Reese. I know this has been a really popular pattern, and a lot of people have knit gorgeous versions of it. This is a pattern you can purchase on Ravelry for $5. It is a stunning triangular shawl which alternates garter stitch sections with stockinette sections featuring a flower motif. As you can see, the garter stitch sections are done in a variegated yarn, and the stockinette sections are done in a solid color yarn. And there are a few places where there are some striping, which I think just adds to the beauty of the overall look of it. It's quite wide. The wingspan of mine is about 6 feet. It's not a difficult pattern at all, and the pattern comes with detailed directions, including pictures for how to make the flower motif. Once you've got that down, it is smooth sailing. Mine just got a little waylaid for a few months, but I'm ecstatic that it's finally done, and it's gorgeous, and I love it. As far as the yarn I used, the solid color purple is the Into the World Gloucester sock base, which is a merino, superwash merino nylon blend, and it's in the Succubus colorway. I think I picked this up at Stitches Midwest a couple of years ago. And the variegated yarn is Sweet Georgia Tough Love sock, which is again a superwash merino nylon blend, and it's in the colorway Smitten. I believe I got this at Les Moutons Rouge Knittery, which is a very nice yarn shop in Bloomington, Illinois. I think these two yarns look fabulous together. They are both nice and squishy, and next to the skin soft. It would be perfect to wrap around your neck or around your shoulders. I did block the shawl, but only very lightly, just to kind of flatten it out because it was rather scrunched looking when I got done with it. And the blocking opened up the flower pattern a little bit. The only thing I wish I would have done differently is a stretchier bind off, because I feel like this bind off is a little tight, but it's fine. I don't think you can tell. And I'm just super happy with it overall, and I used a US size 5 needle, which is a 3.75 millimeter. So again, this is the Windy Sky Shawl by Debbie Reese. It's really a joy to knit, and I do highly recommend it. I will link to the Ravelry pattern page as well as the yarns I used in the information box below. I was trying to decide what neato gadget I would talk about today, and when I was blocking my shawl, I used my Knitter's Pride knit blockers and thought maybe I would share those with you today. Now these have been out for quite a while now, so you might have already seen them, but if you don't already have some in your knitting accessory collection, I really think they are worth the money if you ever need to block an item. The knit blockers are stainless steel blocking pins that are embedded in a hard plastic base. So they look kind of like little combs, and they're rust resistant. They come in two sizes, one with 8 pins, and the smaller one has 4 pins. I think these tools are ingenious, and somebody should have thought of this a long time ago. Instead of having to block something with numerous, individual T-pins, like these old T-pins that we used to use, you can instead use fewer of these blockers, and you don't get the scallops between the pins like you do, when you're using the individual pins. You can even use these with blocking wires. So I brought a blocking wire, and so for the blocking wire, you just lace the blocking wire through the edge of your shawl to keep the edge straight, and then hold the wire taut with these, knit blockers. And again, you see less sagging, especially when you're trying to severely block something and pull it really, really tight. Now, a set of knit blockers comes with 12 large blockers and 8 small blockers. They fit into this nice, sturdy plastic storage box, and the box has slots delineated for fitting each blocker in place, so you'll always be able to get all of them into the box. At the bottom of the box is styrofoam that the pins push into, so the blockers don't move around or fall out. And the box is small and doesn't take up a lot of space for storage either. Now you can purchase a set for around $25 at Webs, which is yarn.com. I think these are a really nice, handy tool to have on hand and completely worth the $25 purchase price. I would never want to go back to using regular T-pins for blocking ever again. So yeah, these are knit blockers, and I will include a link below so you can go check them out if you want to. And also let me know in the comments section, have you ever used knit blockers? Have you enjoyed using them? Are you a fan of them? Or maybe you had a bad incident? I can't think of any drawbacks to using them, but I'm interested to hear about your experiences with knit blockers. So leave your comments below and let me know. Today in the classroom, we're going to look at some different interchangeable knitting needle sets. Now, I don't have every single interchangeable set that's on the market, but I do have 10 different sets. And I wanted to talk today about the characteristics of the interchangeable needles that I have, and tell you the features that I find important, and reveal my favorite and least favorite needles. I'm completely aware that knitting needle preferences are a very personal decision and differ from individual to individual, but I thought it might be interesting and worthwhile for viewers to at least hear about the specs for each type of needle, because whatever features are important to you, you're going to be looking for, and maybe you'll find something new to try out on this list. And maybe you and I like similar things in our needles, and I can tell you why I like the ones I do. And I'll also tell you about the ones that I really haven't had the best time using and haven't worked out for me. Okay, so what I did was assess specific characteristics of each type of needle. I started out by taking precise measurements of the various aspects of the needle tips using a micrometer, which is a small caliper, In order to keep everything consistent between the different types of needles, all the different measurements were done on a US size 7 or 4.5 millimeter needle tip. So I measured point diameter, taper length, and the length of the entire tip shaft. I also asked some of my students to make ratings on several characteristics of the needle tips and cords. They rated the smoothness of the tips, smoothness of the joins, and the flexibility of the cords. To rate the tips, they picked up each needle and touched it, ran their fingers across it, and then recorded their judgment on the survey sheet. To rate the joins, they used a cotton ball that had been slightly pulled apart so that it was elongated and could be lightly wrapped around the needle and slid back and forth across the place where the needle tip connected to the cord. They paid attention to how much noise it made while crossing the connection, as well as how much the cotton actually caught on the join. Finally, to judge the cord flexibility, they picked up the pair of needles and manipulated the whole thing so they could make a decision about how flexible the cord was. And their ratings were on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 was not smooth or not flexible, and 10 was the highest in smoothness and flexibility. So higher ratings mean more of the thing being measured. And lastly, I just made a note of several attributes of the needle sets. First, do the needle tips swivel on the join or are they stationary? Second, what material are the tips made from? Third, what material are the cords made from? Fourth, are all the tips completely interchangeable with any cord, or do you have to match up certain tip sizes to specific cords? And finally, how much does the set cost? The needle sets that I compared here are Hiya Sharps, Chowgu Red Lace, Knitter's Pride Carbons, Knitter's Pride Melodies of Life, Knitter's Pride Marbles, Knitter's Pride Dreams, Knitter's Pride Cubics, Addie Lace Clicks, Denise, and Signatures. Now, the first thing you might notice on this list is that almost all of these sets are metal needles, and that is definitely one of my personal preferences. I only have 2 sets that are not metal, or 3 sets that are not metal, and those are Denise's, which are plastic, and the Knitter's Pride Dreams, which are wood, and the Knitter's Pride Marbles, which are acrylic. But I almost always knit with metal needles. The only time I might knit with wood or bamboo needles would be when I'm knitting with silk yarn or something really slippery. Then I do like the wood or bamboo because the yarn is less likely to slide off the needles. The wood needles have a little more texture and grip. But other than that, I'm always knitting with metal needles. So I put together a countdown of the 6 most important features that I personally look for in knitting needles. So number 6, for the needle tip composition, like I said, I prefer metal needles. Number 5, I like a flexible cord that doesn't twist or kink, and I'm pretty picky about this. I absolutely cannot knit with the cheap circular needles that you get at Walmart or even Joann's. I've bought those before, but I cannot stand the cords on them. The pliable cords are one reason I truly believe that higher quality needles are worth the investment. Number 4, I prefer a swivel join if I can get it. I must be one of those knitters who twist their needles a lot when they knit, because when I knit with circular needles that don't have a swivel joint, I have had problems with the cord twisting and kinking up. It doesn't always happen with every type of needle, but that just drives me crazy. I've had some great experiences with non-swiveling needles, so it doesn't necessarily need to have a swivel joint, but I think I knit better with the swivel joint. All right, number 3, next in importance is a smooth join between the needle tip and the cord. I know this is a common issue that knitters talk about. It's super frustrating trying to work on a project where the stitches constantly get hung up on the join and don't freely move on and off the cord. So a smooth join is definitely a must. Down to number 2, even more important to me is a short needle length. I know I'm probably unusual in this regard, but I especially love needle tips that are 4 inches in length or less. And my goal is to only use interchangeable sets that have the shorter tips and get rid of the ones with the longer tips because I just don't use them as much. That's just my personal thing. And number 1, my top characteristic that I'm looking for in needles is an ultra pointy tip. I especially like a longer, more gradual taper to a very sharp tip, as opposed to a steeper taper ending in a blunt tip. And again, I know that's a personal thing. I know a lot of knitters who like the pointy needle tips and a lot of others who like more blunt tips. So I sat down recently and seriously reviewed all of my needle sets and asked myself what I liked about each one and what I didn't like. And that's how I came up with my list. So those are the features that make me want to use a set of needles over another. Now let's talk about a comparison among these interchangeable sets, looking at all of the measurements and information I compiled about them. And then I will go over which are my favorites and which ones didn't really work out for me. So first, let's take a look at the tips. And remember, these are all US size 7s, which is a 4.5 millimeter needle. So as far as the pointiest needles, the Hiya Sharps came in first, followed by the Carbons, the Cubics, and then the Signatures. At the other end of the scale, the most blunt tips were on the Denises, Addies, and the Dreams. For the total tip shaft length, the needles with the shortest tips were the Hiya, Addies, Signatures, and Denises. They were all 4 inches or less. Those with the longest tips were Chowgoos, Marbles, Carbons, and Dreams. However, the Chowgoos, Carbons, and Dreams do come in a shorter tip length. You can buy sets with the 4-inch tips. So I think I'm going to destash these sets that I have with the longer needles and purchase sets with the shorter tips. For the smoothness of the joins, all of the needles were actually rated pretty highly, but my student judges gave perfect ratings for the joins on the Hiya and Signatures, and then the Marbles and Chowgoos came in next with ratings of 9. The lowest ratings on join smoothness went to the Melodies of Life, Dreams, and Carbons. My student judges thought those were the least smooth joins. And speaking of smoothness, I also had them rate how smooth the overall needle tips were. And on that rating, Addies came out on top. They were the smoothest, followed by Melodies of Life, Signatures, and Hiya. The least smooth ones were Dreams, which are wood, Denises, which are plastic, and Marbles, which are acrylic, so that kind of makes sense. All right, so I mentioned that some needles have a join that swivels. And out of all of these needles, there are only 2 that have swivel joins, and those are the Hiya and Signatures. All the rest are stationary joins. However, you can get swivel cords for the Chowgoos under the Spin brand. Chowgoo also makes an interchangeable set of bamboo needles with cords that swivel, and those are called the Chowgoo Spins. The set that I have are the Chowgoo Red Lace Twist, and that comes with stationary cords. But these cords can be used interchangeably between the twist and the spin sets. So I've actually ordered some spin cords so I can use the ChowGoos with the swivel joint. Now, I also asked my students to rate the flexibility of the cord on each needle set, and the ones that came out on top with a perfect score were Hiya-Hiyas, Addies, and Signatures. The Denise cord was all alone on the low end. The raters did not really like the Denise cord. And I can see why, because, the Denise cord is quite a bit thicker than the rest and just not nearly as springy, or soft. But the rest of the cords did pretty well with ratings of 9, which makes sense since they're all basically the same cord from the same manufacturer. These are all the Knitter's Pride needle sets, and their cords are nice. Another thing about the cord is what material is it made out of? Now, most of the sets I have use nylon cords. The only cords that are not nylon are the ChowGoos, which have the red cable, and this is a steel cable with nylon coating, and the other one is the Denise's with the plastic cord. As I said previously, almost all of my sets are metal. The only ones that aren't metal are the Dreams, which are made from laminated birch wood, the Denise's, which are made from plastic, and the Marbles, which are made out of acrylic. The rest of them are all some kind of metal. Now, the Hiya-Hiyas are steel. The ChowGoos are stainless steel. The Carbons are carbon fiber with brass tips. And the Melodies of Life are aluminum. The Cubics are chrome-plated brass. And both the Addies and the Signatures are nickel-plated brass. Now, this might be helpful for you to know if you have any metal allergies. Like I know some people are allergic to nickel, so you could avoid the ones that have nickel plating if you need to. A couple of other things I wanted to bring up are the interchangeability of the cords with all the needle sizes, and then the price. Now, most of these sets are fully interchangeable, where there is one size of cord and it fits all the needle sizes. In fact, all the Knitter's Pride needles are interchangeable with each other because they all have the same cords. They're all made by the same company. There are 3 sets which require different cords to go with different sizes of needle tips. Both the Hiya-Hiya and the ChowGoos have 2 different sizes of cords. A small, which fits tips up to a US size 8, which is 5 millimeter, and a large, which fits a US size 9, which is 5.5 millimeter and above. So these sets both work the same way. Anything up to a size 8 fits on the smaller cord, and it actually has a smaller size connector. And a size 9 and above fits on the larger cord with the larger size connector. Now, the Signatures are unique in that their cord sizes correspond to their needle size. So you have to buy separate cords for each individual size of needle tip. What's interchangeable is the cord lengths for each size of needle. Like you could take a US size 8 tips and put them on a 16-inch cord or a 24-inch cord or a 32-inch cord. But you couldn't take a size 7 tip and put them on a cord for a size 8 needle. So if that makes sense, each size of cord is specific to that size of needle. And as much as I love Signature needles, and the few fixed circulars that I have are without a doubt my favorites, that lack of interchangeability between the cords and the different size needle tips is a real drawback for me. Plus, there's the price. Let's talk about the price of these needles. For a set of Signatures, you will pay $336. And for that, you get to choose 8 pairs of needle tips, which are completely customizable. You get to pick long tips or short tips, or a combination of the two. You get to choose the point style from the super sharp stiletto tips, which are the ones that I like, to the more blunt tips, which they call the midi. Or again, you could get a combination of the two. And you get to choose 8 cord sizes and lengths. So I feel like $336 is a pretty steep price for what you get. And I actually don't have the signatures in the interchangeable set. I just have a few fixed circulars. I love them, but because of the price and the lack of interchangeability between needle sizes, I just don't want to buy a set when there are some others that are pretty much just as good. I would say that overall, after doing this analysis of my knitting needle sets, my favorite interchangeable needles would have to be the Hayahayas. I like them the most because of their sharp pointy tips with the gradual taper, the short 3.5-inch tip length, very smooth joins that swivel, a nice flexible pliable cord, and the fact that they are made out of steel, so they're metal. A complete Hayahaya interchangeable set is about $165, and for that you get 13 sets of needle tips ranging from a US size 2, which is 2.75 millimeter, to a US size 15, which is 10 millimeters. I mean, that pretty much covers the gamut of everything you would need in a needle set. Also, I really like the Chowgoos, even though their tips are not quite as pointy. They're still good tips, and they have a nice gradual taper too. And the Chowgoos for this set, a complete set of these, it's $110, which is not bad. You get 13 sets of needle tips, just like the Hayahayas, and they go from a US size 2 to a 15, just like the Hayahayas. Now, in case you're interested in getting any of the other sets, let me share with you the cost of each of these sets. The Carbons Box of Joy that I have comes with 9 sets of needle tips for $140. The Melodies of Life set is $80 for 9 pairs of needle tips. The Marbles are $70 for 7 pairs of needle tips. The Addie Lace Clicks are $120 for 8 pairs of needle tips. With the Dreams, you get 9 sets of needle tips for $60. The Denises come with 10 sets of needle tips for $60. And the Cubics have 7 pairs of needle tips for $60. So as I said, my favorites are the signatures, but I only have a few fixed circulars of those. So lately my go-to needles have been the Hayahaya Sharps. And what about my least favorite needles? Probably the ones that I have used the least over the years have been my Denises. Don't get me wrong, they're nice needles, but I just don't find myself reaching for the plastic needles ever. And I just like the cords on the other needles a lot better. Now, as far as needles that just haven't worked for me, I have to say that the Cubics have been my least favorite. These are the square needles, and they're supposed to be ergonomic and better for your hands. Not that I have problems with my hands, but I wanted to try them out. Now, the Cubics are made by Knitter's Pride, so they have the exact same cords that the Carbons, the Dreams, and the Marbles have. But this is something I've discovered about myself. I must twist the needles as I knit, and I know that other people do this too, which is why they make swivel cords. Now, the weird thing is I generally don't have problems with cords on the round needles getting twisted, but with the square needles, my cord always gets horribly twisted. And that's very frustrating to me. And it's not just the Cubics either. I have tried these collage needles, square needles, and they have a super flexible cable. Look how bendy this is. But oh my gosh, I hate using these needles because the cord gets terribly twisted when I use these. So I don't know why, but I haven't had much luck with the square needles. So they are just my least favorite overall. And I will put links to all of these needles that I've talked about today in the information box below, so you can check them out if you're interested. Well, that brings us to the end of today's show. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about the interchangeable needle sets that I talked about today. Did you find out about any brands you didn't know about, or features that you hadn't thought about? What are your favorite needles? And what do you look for in knitting needles? Are there certain characteristics that you have to have? Are there any needles that you haven't liked? Maybe you've just had some bad luck with some. I'd love to hear from you and find out your likes and dislikes in terms of your knitting needle preferences. Also, please feel free to comment if you have any questions about today's show, or if you have an idea for what you'd like to see on future episodes, or if you'd like to see a product tested. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today, and I'll see you in the next video. Next time, I think I'm going to talk about different types of yarn swifts. You know, there are different swift designs, and I thought I could show those, how they work, and talk about their characteristics. And maybe you'll find a new one that will fit your style. I hope you'll join me for that comparison, and in the meantime, have a sparkly week.